A family barbecue in Houston should have been normal, until my wife's stepson slammed the table and screamed, "Disappear forever," tossing an ADN envelope like a verdict. Overnight, I went from husband and father to a man labeled dangerous, locked out of my own home and cut off from my son. No yelling, no begging, just receipts, timestamps, and a lawyer who told me I had 24 hours to protect my rights. In court, their tears almost won, until the evidence spoke louder than the story they built. This isn't a revenge tale. It's cold justice, boundaries, and walking away with your dignity intact. If you've ever been erased by the people you protected, you'll understand every second of this. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories where dignity wins and the truth leaves a paper trail. I was still in my work clothes when we pulled up to my in-laws' place in Sugar Land. The company logo on my polo always made people assume I was the serious one, the guy who ran operations like a machine. At work, I managed fleets, contracts, deadlines, problems with clear rules and clean solutions. At home, I handled things differently. I smoothed edges. I swallowed comments. I let small disrespect slide because peace felt cheaper than conflict. That night, I told myself it was just a family barbecue, a normal evening, nothing more. I stood by the grill with a pair of tongs in my hand, flipping chicken and watching the backyard fill up. My wife, Tanya, moved between groups like she owned the air. Her son, Jalen, hovered near the patio door, phone in his hand, eyes scanning me the way teenagers do when they're deciding whether you deserve a nod. I'd been living with that look for a while. Someone asked how work was going. I gave the usual answer. Busy. We're expanding routes. A couple of uncles laughed and called me Mr. Corporate. It was light enough, normal enough. Then Tanya called everyone inside for cake. We crowded around the dining table, plates scraping, forks clinking, little jokes bouncing off the walls. I took a spot at the end, partly out of habit, partly because I'd learned my place in that room was always temporary. Jalen didn't sit. He stood behind his chair, shoulders tight, jaw working like he was chewing on something bitter. His eyes locked on me, and then he slammed both hands on the table so hard the cups jumped. "Disappear forever." The room dropped into silence so fast it felt like pressure. Jalen reached into his hoodie pocket and threw an envelope onto the table. It slid across the wood and stopped right in front of me. Block letters on the front. My last name. A lab logo. The kind of envelope people imagine when they want science to settle a fight. For a second, I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even look down. I looked at Tanya instead. She didn't gasp. She didn't ask what he was doing. She didn't tell him to stop. She stepped closer to him, like she was choosing a side without speaking. My mother-in-law's mouth stayed open, but no sound came out. One of the cousins let out a quiet, "Oh my God," like this was entertainment. A few heads turned toward me with that slow, hungry curiosity people get when they think they're about to watch a man break. Jalen pointed at the envelope. "You got no right to act like a father in this house. You're nothing." My hands stayed on my knees under the table. I could feel my fingers tightening, knuckles whitening, but my face didn't change. Years in the army taught me what panic looks like. Years in management taught me what weakness costs. I finally picked up the envelope. It was heavier than paper should have been, like it carried more than ink. I didn't open it. Not there. Not in front of them. "Where did you get this?" I asked. Jalen's lips curled. "Doesn't matter." Tanya crossed her arms, eyes cold in a way I'd only seen during arguments when she wanted to win. "Marcus," she said, slow. "Just don't make this worse." That's what she offered me. Not truth, not protection, just a warning. Something in my chest went quiet. Not anger, not sadness. Just the sound of a door clicking shut. I stood up without pushing my chair back too hard. I laid the envelope on the table like it was evidence and not a weapon. People watched me like I might explode, but I didn't give them that. "I'm stepping outside," I said. No one followed. In the backyard, I pulled my phone out and stared at the screen until Denise's name came to mind. Denise Carter, a paralegal I'd met through a vendor dispute last year. Smart, blunt, not impressed by drama. I didn't call her yet. My thumb hovered over her contact while laughter floated out from the kitchen like nothing had happened. The house behind me kept living without me. I slid the phone back into my pocket, got into my car, and started the engine, still holding that envelope in my lap like a piece of my life had just been stamped and sorted. The envelope sat on the nightstand like it had its own weight, its own gravity. I hadn't opened it. Not because I was scared of what it said, because I knew exactly why it existed. My phone buzzed before my alarm went off. A hotel room near West Chase didn't have much personality. That was the point. Clean bed, clean sheets, no memories. I rolled over and reached for my phone, thinking maybe Tanya had sent something, a correction, a pause, anything. It wasn't her, it was her family. Text after text, notifications stacked on top of each other like bills. Marcus, what happened last night? Why would Jalen say something like that? You need to handle this. People are talking. Are you two okay? Did you threaten him? Not one message asked if I was all right. Not one asked if the envelope was real. They came at me like I'd caused the fire, and now owed everyone an explanation for the smoke. I sat up, rubbed my face, and tried to slow my breathing. A habit from years ago, when you wake up in unfamiliar places and need to orient yourself before your mind starts inventing threats. The rumor had already escaped the walls of that dining room. I didn't reply. Not yet. Words felt useless when everyone had already picked a story. In the bathroom, I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. The same man who signed off on multi-million-dollar contracts. The same man who trained soldiers half his age. And yet somehow, one teenager with a sharp tongue had turned me into a suspect. I dressed, walked out, and drove straight to the office. Work didn't care what happened at my in-laws' table. Trucks still needed routes. People still needed answers. I stepped into the building like I belonged there, because I did. The morning meeting started on time. Laptops open, coffee cups, my team running through numbers. Halfway through, I caught it. A glance. Not from everyone, just one of the supervisors, a guy I'd promoted last year. He kept looking away when I met his eyes, like he'd already heard something and didn't know how to act around me now. That's what hurt the most. Not anger, not embarrassment. The speed. By lunchtime, I knew the story had legs. I ate alone in my truck, pulled out my phone, and finally clicked Denise's name. My thumb hovered again, but this time I didn't hesitate. She picked up on the second ring. Marcus? I need a question answered, I said, not sympathy. She exhaled once, like she understood the language I was speaking. Okay, what happened? I gave her the clean version. No drama, no emotion, just facts, steps, the envelope, the words, Tanya standing with him. There was a pause. Then her voice sharpened. Do you have the deed to your house? It's in a folder, at home. Do you have bank statements, mortgage statements, anything showing who paid what? Yes. Any cameras, doorbell, backyard, anything that records? Doorbell. Maybe the neighbors too. Good, she said. Because you're not dealing with feelings, you're dealing with a setup. I stared out at the parking lot, watching people walk in and out of the building like their lives were still simple. They're already talking, I said. Let them, Denise replied. People love a story. You need paperwork. I didn't argue. I didn't ask her if she believed me. She hadn't offered belief. She'd offered strategy. That's when the loneliness hit in a different way. Not the kind that comes from being alone in a room. The kind that comes from realizing everyone around you can be together and still be wrong. I ended the call, unlocked my glove compartment, and slid my phone inside for a second like I needed the distance. Then I pulled it back out, opened my notes app, and started typing a list of everything I could remember from last night. Names, times, who said what, one line at a time. I was still in my work pants when I pulled into the driveway in Katy. The sun hadn't even fully dropped, but the street felt quieter than usual, like everybody was inside watching a show they didn't invite me to. I walked up to the front door and slid my key in. It didn't turn. I tried again, slower, thinking maybe I'd bent it. Nothing. The lock caught and refused like the house had decided it didn't know me anymore. A tight laugh slipped out of my nose. Not because it was funny, because my brain didn't know what else to do with the disbelief. I stepped back and hit the garage keypad. The code I'd used for 3 years blinked red. I typed it again. Same result. My phone buzzed while I stood there. One message from Tanya. Don't make this a big thing. That was it. No explanation. No, where are you? No, "We need to talk." Just a command, like I was a problem she wanted quiet. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard, and deleted the first response I wrote. Then the second, then the third. Arguing in text was how people handed the other side ammunition. So I put the phone in my pocket and walked around to the side gate. The latch was locked too, a new padlock, fresh metal. Someone had taken time to do this. My duffel bag was still in the trunk. My suit jacket hung in the back seat. A few of my work files sat in the passenger seat. That was what I had access to now. The rest of my life was behind a door I paid for. I leaned against the brick for a moment and tried to line my thoughts up like boxes in a warehouse. Facts first, feelings later. A notification popped up on my phone. An email from the bank. Important notice regarding your mortgage account. I opened it with one hand, holding my breath without meaning to. The message was short, clinical. Something about changes to communication preferences and updated authorized contacts. Then I saw the line that made my stomach drop. Secondary email recipient, Brenda Holloway, my mother-in-law. I read it twice, hoping my eyes were wrong. They weren't. That's when the question I didn't want to ask crept in. How long has she been in the middle of my paperwork? I stood there thinking about every time Brenda insisted on helping with forms. Every time she said, "Just put it in Tanya's name, it's easier." Every time she smiled like she was doing me a favor. Maybe I had been too busy, too strict, too focused on the job. Maybe I had made my own home feel like a schedule instead of a place. Then the other thought came in behind it, sharper. Or maybe none of that mattered, because this wasn't about my personality. This was about control. Denise's words came back. "You're not dealing with feelings, you're dealing with a setup." I got back into my car, opened my laptop on the passenger seat, and logged into the bank account. The joint checking balance wouldn't load. Error message. I tried the credit card portal. Locked. I didn't panic. I documented screenshots, dates, times, error codes. I pulled up the mortgage documents I'd saved in a work folder, downloaded everything available, then called the bank's customer service line and requested a full history of account changes. While I waited on hold, I opened my doorbell camera app and saved the last 30 days of footage to my cloud drive. The music on the phone line kept looping, but my hands stayed busy. When the bank representative finally came on, I lowered my voice and gave my information like it was a routine call, even though my heart kept punching the inside of my ribs. "I need copies of every authorization update," I said. "Every email added, every signature on file." She asked for verification. I answered without hesitation. Then I opened my notes again and added a new section at the top. Evidence. And under it, I typed one line. Locked out. Physical and financial. Same day. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Tanya. "Please don't embarrass me." I didn't reply. I just tapped the contact info for my lawyer's office, then looked back at the front door, still locked, and hit call. The lawyer's office didn't call me back fast enough to stop what came next. I was in the hotel parking lot, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, when a deputy walked up and asked my name. He wasn't rude. He wasn't aggressive. That almost made it worse. "Marcus Bennett?" he said. "Yes." He handed me a packet of papers the way you'd hand someone a receipt. "You've been served." The words didn't land right away. My eyes moved over the first page, scanning for something that made sense. Petition for protective order, Harris County. Petitioner, Tanya Holloway Bennett. I read the accusations like they were written about a stranger. Threatening behavior, emotional intimidation, fear for safety. There it was, in neat lines of black ink. My wife telling the state of Texas that I was dangerous. The deputy pointed to a section where I needed to sign, just acknowledging I'd received it. I signed. My hand didn't shake. The signature looked the same as it always did. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "When's the hearing?" He gave me the date and left. I stood there for a full minute, papers in my hand, feeling the weight of how fast a person can be turned into a problem you have to prove you're not. My phone buzzed right after, a number I recognized. The school, Cinco Ranch Elementary. I answered because my son's name was always in my mind, even when it wasn't on the screen. "Mr. Bennett," the receptionist said carefully, "we were instructed that you are not authorized for pickup today." Instructed by who? Silence, then a soft voice. Your wife informed us there are concerns. Concerns. That was how they packaged it. A clean word with sharp edges. I'm his father, I said. I understand, sir, but we have to follow what's on file. I swallowed whatever wanted to rise up in my throat. Put the principal on, I said. Another pause, papers rustling. A man came on the line, the kind of polite that means he's already decided. Marcus, we just want what's best for the child, he said. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because adults say that right before they do something cruel. I'm not arguing with the school, I told him. I'm asking you to document that I called and that I'm being denied contact based on an allegation. He didn't know what to do with that. Yes, sir, we can note that. I hung up, got in my car, and drove over anyway. Not to cause a scene, not to intimidate anyone, just to see my son's face and make sure he was okay. I parked across the street, away from the main lot, and waited for dismissal. Kids spilled out with backpacks bouncing, shouting names, grabbing their parents' hands. I stayed by my car, hands in my pockets, keeping distance so nobody could say I approached the building. Then I saw him. My son, Caleb, small for his age, wearing the blue hoodie I bought him last month. His eyes darted toward the curb like he was searching for me the way he always did. He found me. His whole body shifted like he wanted to run, but he stopped. A teacher's hand touched his shoulder. She leaned down and said something. Caleb's face tightened. He looked back at me, then at her, then down at the ground. That moment hit harder than the papers in my hand. He didn't stay back because he didn't love me. He stayed back because somebody had taught him to be afraid of reaching for me. I lifted my hand slightly, not a wave, just enough to tell him I was there. He stared at me for a second, then turned and followed the line of kids toward the after-school program. I didn't chase. I didn't argue with staff. I didn't demand. I watched him go inside, then pulled the protective order packet from my passenger seat and opened to the section listing the claims again, reading them slower this time, already picking out what I could disprove, already forming the next call I needed to make. The first thing Denise did was send me a checklist, not a pep talk, not a prayer, a list, formatted like a work order. Open a separate bank account today. Change passwords on every financial platform. Request copies of deed, mortgage, and any power of attorney documents. Pull every bank statement for the last 24 months. If there's audio, get a forensic review. Do not argue about it. Prove it. Get your own copy of the school pickup list and any emails Tanya sent. I stared at the screen and felt something steady settle in my chest. This was language I understood. Processes, steps, deadlines. I drove to a credit union in Buckhead, sat across from a woman with a neat bun and a calm voice, and opened an account in my name only. I didn't feel sneaky. I felt late. On the way out, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I remembered Denise telling me to treat everything like evidence. The message was short. You're not the first. Brenda did this to her last husband too. Watch the paperwork. My throat tightened, not from emotion, more from the cold precision of it. Somebody out there knew. Somebody had seen this pattern up close. I typed back. Who is this? No reply. I didn't chase it. I saved it. Then I drove to Pearland. Jalen's mother, Rochelle, agreed to meet me at a diner off the highway. A plain booth, vinyl seats, coffee that tasted like it had been reheated twice. She looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep, the kind of tired you wear when you've been blamed for years. Rochelle didn't greet me like an enemy. She didn't greet me like a friend either. She just nodded and kept her hands around her mug. He's always been loud, she said, but he wasn't always cruel. I waited, let her speak without pushing. She shook her head and stared at the table. Brenda raised Tanya like men are temporary, Rochelle continued. Like you get what you can, and if he leaves, you find another one. I felt my jaw tighten. Jalen talks like he's owed something, I said. Rochelle let out a small breath. Because he's been told he is. Tanya calls it protecting him. Brenda calls it making sure he's never without. It turns into, she searched for the word, a machine. A man becomes a card, a paycheck, a ride, something replaceable. Hearing it out loud made it uglier. Not dramatic, just ugly. When I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification I didn't even remember turning on. I tapped it out of reflex. Tanya had posted a long paragraph without naming me, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew. Words like narcissist, control, and fear floated in the comments, handed around like they were facts. Her cousin wrote, "We got you, sis." Someone else wrote, "Protect your peace." Then my phone lit up with a direct message from Tanya. "If you sign the papers and leave the house quietly, I'll let you see Caleb. Don't fight me." I read it twice, then a third time. She turned my child into a bargaining chip. That was the moment my body stopped trying to hold the marriage together. Something snapped clean, not messy, not explosive. I opened Denise's text thread again and typed one sentence. "She's using my son as leverage." Denise responded almost immediately. "Good. Screenshot it. Forward it to your attorney. Do not respond." I didn't answer Tanya. I didn't argue with the comments. I saved every post, every message, every timestamp. Then I sat in my car for a second, phone in my hand, thinking about the choice in front of me. Stay quiet and be erased slowly, or step into the mess and force the truth into daylight. Before I started the engine and headed back toward my lawyer's office. Downtown Houston had a way of making everything feel official. Concrete, glass, people moving with purpose. I parked a few blocks from the courthouse and walked into a family law office that looked like it had seen 1,000 broken promises. The receptionist didn't ask how I was doing. She asked for my name and my ID. That alone told me I'd made the right choice. A man in a navy suit stepped out a few minutes later and motioned me back without small talk. His name was printed on the wall by the door, Evan Price, attorney at law. He was maybe in his early 50s, calm eyes, the kind of face that didn't react to other people's panic. He sat across from me, opened a legal pad, and said, "Let's start with what they filed." I handed him the packet. Protective order petition, school restriction, the whole stack. He read fast, like he'd done this too many times to pretend it was new. When he finished, he looked up and didn't soften his voice. "You have 24 hours, he said. I blinked once. 24 hours for what? To protect your property rights and your parenting rights before they complete the picture they're building. He tapped the petition with 2 fingers. If the court sees you as a threat, they can remove you from the home, restrict contact, and set a temporary structure that becomes permanent by momentum. The words hit hard, but they didn't scare me. They clarified things. I'd been acting like this was a family argument. He was telling me it was a legal strategy. "I don't want a war," I said. "You don't have to want it," he replied. "You just have to respond correctly." He pushed a paper toward me. "I need facts, dates, proof. No speeches, no emotions. You can vent later. Right now, we build." So that's what we did. Evan asked questions like he was auditing a company. "Who paid the mortgage?" "Me, mostly." "Can you prove it?" "Yes." "Whose name is on the deed?" "Both of ours." "Any recent changes?" "I got an email. My mother-in-law was added as a recipient." He didn't raise his eyebrows. He just wrote it down. We mapped everything on a timeline. The barbecue night, the envelope, the lockout, the account freeze, the protective order. Every event became a line item. He told me what to collect in order. Deed, mortgage statements, insurance policy, bank statements, credit card history, any power of attorney documents, every email from the bank, screenshots of Tanya's Facebook post, her message offering access to my son in exchange for signing papers. "That last one," Evan said, "matters." I opened my laptop right there and pulled up the screenshots. He leaned in, read, then nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "This shows leverage. Courts don't like leverage with children." For the next few hours, I moved like I was back in operations. No wasted steps, no wandering thoughts. I requested documents from the county clerk's office website. I logged into cloud storage and uploaded everything. I called my insurance provider for proof of payment. I pulled up my work schedule and exported my timestamps. If Tanya claimed I'd threatened her on a night I was in a warehouse overseeing a late shipment, I wanted that record ready. Evan drafted responses, motions, requests for evidence, a plan to challenge the protective order and secure temporary visitation. "You're going to feel like a villain," he told me, not looking up from his screen. "Because they'll cry. They'll tell everyone you're cold. You keep your face straight and let the documents talk. By the time I left the office, my phone was filled with files, timestamps, and reminders. My chest felt tight, but my mind had stopped spinning. I drove back toward the hotel, stopped at a copy shop to print the essentials, then carried a folder upstairs like I was bringing work home. In the parking lot, I noticed a sedan I didn't recognize parked 2 rows over. Nobody got out. Nobody moved. Still, something about it stayed in my head. Up in my room, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One message. Don't play courthouse games. Just leave. I didn't answer. I saved it, forwarded it to Evan, then added it to my folder with the rest. The printer on the desk hummed as pages slid out one after another, and I kept stacking them, sorting them, labeling them, until the pile started to look like something solid enough to stand on. I walked into Harris County Family Court with a folder thick enough to hurt someone if I threw it. I didn't plan to throw anything. I planned to survive. The hallway smelled like cheap coffee and stress. People sat on benches staring at their shoes, whispering into phones, holding manila envelopes like shields. Nobody looked happy to be there. Some looked guilty. Some looked defeated. I kept my shoulders level and followed Evan into the courtroom. It wasn't big. That surprised me. I'd expected something grand, something that matched the way my life was being rearranged. Instead, it felt like a classroom where strangers decided whether you deserved your own child. Tanya sat at the front with her attorney. Her eyes were already wet, tissue in hand, perfect posture for sympathy. Brenda sat behind her, back straight, face calm, scanning the room like a supervisor checking for mistakes. She didn't look worried. She looked organized. Jalen sat beside them. Hood up, leg bouncing, his expression practiced, part anger, part pain. When the judge came in, everyone stood. I stood too, hands steady at my sides. The clerk called the case. Tanya spoke first. Her attorney painted me as controlling, cold, intimidating, a man who made her feel unsafe. Then Tanya started crying. He doesn't yell, she said, voice shaking. But that's what makes it worse. He stares at you like you're nothing. He makes you feel small. I'm scared of what he's capable of. The words were smooth, rehearsed. The kind of story people believed because it sounded like something that could happen. My jaw tightened, but I kept my mouth shut. Evan's hand lifted slightly, a quiet reminder. Not yet. Then Jalen was called. He walked up like he'd been waiting for the stage. He didn't look at me. He looked at the judge. "He's not my dad," he said. "He acts like he is, but he's not. He tried to control my mom. He makes her cry. He tells me what to do like I'm a little kid. I told him to disappear forever because he doesn't belong." He said it like he was proud of the line. The courtroom stayed silent. Even the judge's face tightened for a second, the way adults do when a kid says something too sharp for his age. Jalen kept going. "He's dangerous. He's gonna snap one day. I'm trying to protect my mom and my little brother." That part landed heavy, because now it wasn't just about Tanya. It was about Caleb, my child, the one who still called me dad without hesitation. They weren't just insulting me. They were building a legal reason to erase me. Tanya's attorney asked for temporary orders. No contact, removal from the home, no pickup at school, a clean cut. I heard the words and felt something cold settle behind my ribs. If the judge signed off today, the paperwork would do what feelings couldn't. It would make their version of me official. Evan glanced at me and gave the smallest nod. My turn. I stood when my name was called and walked to the front. The floor felt too hard under my shoes. My throat felt tight, but my voice didn't crack. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to ask the court to look at evidence." The judge looked up. I held my folder like it was a report. "I have documentation of financial contributions, communication, and messages that show I'm being denied access to my son as leverage. I'm requesting the court consider that before granting any order that removes me from his life." No begging, no speeches, just the truth, organized. Evan stepped in right after, placing our exhibits on the clerk's desk, and I sat back down as Tanya dabbed her eyes again, watching the judge flip through the first pages like he was finally seeing more than tears. The judge didn't look up again right away. He kept turning pages, scanning dates, reading captions under screenshots. His eyes moved differently now, less like he was watching a performance, more like he was weighing a record. Evan stood when the judge asked for clarification. "Your Honor," he said, The petitioner referenced an audio recording in her filing. We are not disputing that a file exists. We are disputing what that file represents. Tanya's attorney shifted in his seat. Tanya dabbed her eyes and avoided looking at me. Evan held up a printed report. This is a metadata analysis, he continued. The audio was edited. It was exported twice. There are time gaps, and the file creation time does not match the alleged incident date. The judge's pen paused. Are you saying it's fabricated? He asked. I'm saying it's manipulated, Evan answered, and we can show supporting context. He handed over screenshots from the cloud storage, timestamps, upload logs, a short chain of emails I'd sent to myself, proving when I'd received the file. Then he pulled up a still image from my doorbell camera. Jalen's face froze on the screen in a hoodie, stepping into our living room. The timestamp matched the audio file's creation window. In the corner of the frame, my phone sat on the side table, face down, exactly where it would record without anyone touching it afterward. The judge stared at it for a moment, then looked toward Tanya. Ms. Bennett, he said, who took this recording? Tanya's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her attorney jumped in, talking about stress, fear, trauma. He tried to pull the court back into emotion. Evan didn't let it drift. This is not about feelings, he said. This is about truth. I sat still, hands clasped, eyes forward. I didn't glance at Jalen. I didn't give him the satisfaction of my reaction. That kid had thrown an envelope at me like he was declaring ownership. The only thing I owed him now was boundaries. The judge asked for financial documents next. Evan submitted bank statements showing my payments, mortgage drafts that came out of my account, insurance bills paid on schedule. Then he added the email from the bank, the one that made my stomach drop in the driveway. Secondary recipient, Brenda Holloway. The judge's eyebrows finally lifted. Mrs. Holloway, he said, looking toward the back row, what is your involvement in this mortgage account? Brenda sat up straighter, like she was ready for a meeting. I was only helping, she replied. Tanya gets overwhelmed. I handle paperwork. The judge didn't respond right away. He made a note instead. Tanya's attorney tried another angle. Mr. Bennett controls the finances, he said. He's cold. He uses money as power. Evan cut him off with a calm voice. He uses documentation as protection, he corrected. There's a difference. I watched the judge's posture shift. The air in the room changed, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet reset. He wasn't looking at me like a threat anymore. He was looking at me like a man who came prepared. Tanya still had her tears. Jalen still had his anger. Brenda still had her composure. But I had something they didn't. A paper trail. As the judge flipped back to the evidence again, I opened my folder on my lap and slid a new tab into place, already thinking about what we'd request next, already lining up the pieces for the second hearing. The second hearing didn't have the same crowd. No hallway full of relatives. No audience waiting for a show. Just the people who mattered, sitting close enough to hear each other breathe. That made it worse. The quiet sharpened everything. Tanya arrived with a new outfit and the same tears, like she'd learned what played well. Brenda came in carrying a folder this time, her face set like she was prepared to argue policy. Jalen wasn't there. Either they didn't want him questioned again, or he didn't want to risk being caught in another lie. Evan and I sat at the other table, with our stack of documents and a USB drive. He leaned over once and spoke low. They're going to push you, he said. They'll try to get you to react. Don't. I nodded. My hands stayed folded. My eyes stayed on the judge. The other side started with witnesses. First came Tanya's cousin, a woman I'd seen at every holiday for years. She stepped up and spoke like she was giving a statement to save her family. He's intimidating, she said. He doesn't have to hit you. The way he looks at you, it scares people. Then Tanya's aunt followed. We've seen him get angry, she claimed. He raises his voice. He slams doors. Tanya has been afraid. They used words that couldn't be measured. Intimidating, angry, scary. The kind of language that leaves no fingerprints. Each time they said my name, they said it like they were warning the room. Evan didn't interrupt. He let them talk. Let them stack their feelings into a tower. Then he stood and asked questions that made the tower wobble. When did you personally see Mr. Bennett threaten Tanya? Well, not threaten exactly. So you never heard a direct threat? Not in those words. Did you ever call the police? No. Did you ever advise Tanya to call the police? No. So today is the first time you're presenting these concerns to a court. One by one, their certainty thinned. The judge watched, took notes, said very little. Then Tanya took the stand again. She talked about control, about money, about my coldness. She said I used finances to keep her trapped. She said she feared I would take the house and leave her with nothing. Evan waited until her voice started shaking for effect, then handed her a printed screenshot. "Is this your message to Mr. Bennett?" he asked. She glanced down, then looked up. "Yes. You wrote, 'If you sign the papers and leave the house quietly, I'll let you see Caleb,' correct?" Tanya blinked too many times. "I was emotional," she said. "You were negotiating," Evan replied, "with a child." The judge's eyes narrowed. Evan turned to the clerk and submitted a new exhibit, a notarized document, a confirmation letter from the bank. It was clean, formal, impossible to cry away. "Your Honor," Evan said, "this is verification from the notary and the lender. There was an adjustment made to an authorization document connected to the mortgage. The signature process did not follow proper procedure. The timeline overlaps with the lockout and the filing of the protective order." Brenda shifted in her seat for the first time. Then Evan added the messages, text screenshots between Tanya and Brenda. "We need to get the house before he understands. Use the protective order. He'll have to leave. Once he's out, it's done." Tanya's face drained so fast, it looked like someone pulled a plug. Brenda's mouth tightened, but her eyes flashed. Anger, not fear. Like she was mad the plan had been exposed, not sorry it existed. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Bennett," he said, voice low and firm, "do you understand that making false statements to this court is perjury?" Tanya opened her mouth, closed it. Her attorney started to speak, then stopped when the judge raised a hand. "I'm issuing orders today," the judge continued. "The request for continued no contact is denied. Temporary restrictions are lifted, and Mr. Bennett will have access to his child under a structured schedule. Additionally, I'm ordering a freeze on certain assets pending further review." He turned his gaze to Tanya again. "And you will be advised that any further misrepresentation will carry consequences." Evan sat back down, calm as if he'd expected nothing less. "I didn't celebrate. I didn't look at Tanya. I didn't look at Brenda. When the judge dismissed us, I gathered my folder, walked out of the courtroom, and breathed like someone leaving a room where the air had been poisoned for too long. Outside, my phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out while I kept moving, already scrolling for the school number. The school secretary didn't hesitate this time. "Yes, Mr. Bennett," she said after I gave my name. "We received the updated court order. You're cleared for pickup." Her tone stayed professional, but it felt like a weight lifting anyway. Not because she'd done anything wrong, because she represented the system, and the system had finally stopped treating me like a rumor. I drove to Cinco Ranch like I'd done 100 times before. Same turns, same lights, same line of cars in the pickup lane. The difference was, I didn't sit across the street anymore. I pulled right up where I belonged. When Caleb walked out, his eyes found mine and stayed there. No teacher's hand on his shoulder. No quiet warning in his ear. He ran. The hug hit me in the chest so hard I had to take a breath through my nose to keep my voice steady. "Dad," he said into my shirt. I didn't correct him. I didn't say, "I missed you," even though I did. I just held him a second longer than usual, then opened the car door and buckled him in like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's what I wanted. Normal. On the drive, he told me about a spelling test and a kid who traded him a gummy bear for half his sandwich. He talked like nothing had happened, and I let him. Kids don't need courtroom language. They need stability. At the next red light, my phone buzzed. "Evan." "We're ready," his message read. "If you want to file today, we can." I parked at the law office downtown an hour later, with Caleb in after-school care for the afternoon. Evan met me in the hallway with a folder already clipped and labeled. "This is the petition," he said. "No dramatic language, just facts. Division of assets, parenting schedule. Temporary orders aligned with what the judge issued." I sat at his conference table and read every page. Not because I didn't trust him, because I'd learned that trust without verification is how people get taken. Somewhere between the legal phrases, my marriage turned into a case file. I signed. The pen moved smoothly, no shaking hand, no pause for nostalgia, just ink on paper, the way I signed work contracts when I knew the terms and accepted the reality. Evan slid the pages into a folder. "We'll file it this afternoon," he said. "From here, everything is procedural." Procedural. That word sounded like safety. Before I left, he handed me copies of the court's orders and a list of next steps, things to avoid, things to document, who to contact if Tanya violated the schedule. "She'll try one more time," Evan said. "They almost always do." I nodded, already expecting it. Tanya did try. That evening she texted 3 times in a row. "Can we talk? This is going too far. You're ruining our family." I didn't respond, not out of spite, out of clarity. There wasn't a conversation left to have. Anything I said would become a screenshot. Anything emotional would be framed as aggression. Silence was safer than trying to be understood by someone who'd already decided what I was. Brenda called too, once. I sent it to voicemail. The next few weeks moved the way legal things move, slow, steady, unavoidable. The bank froze the accounts the judge ordered frozen. My attorney requested discovery. Their side had to respond. Tanya's story started shrinking the more the paperwork expanded. I heard from a mutual friend that Tanya was angry the court didn't protect her, that she blamed me for embarrassing her in front of the judge, that Brenda was telling anyone who'd listen that I was heartless. They could keep that narrative. It didn't buy them anything anymore. Jalen didn't reach out. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he was mad. Maybe he was being told to stay quiet. Either way, he stopped getting access to my money, my car, my house. The perks disappeared, and suddenly the confidence he'd worn at that dining table didn't matter. I moved into a small townhouse near Memorial Park. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, clean lease, my own mailbox, my own keys. The first night there, Caleb fell asleep on the couch with his backpack still on the floor. I carried him to bed, tucked the blanket around his shoulders, and left the door cracked the way he liked. Downstairs, I unpacked slowly, not because I was savoring anything, because I wanted to build a life that didn't feel rushed by anyone else's emotions. On the balcony, I sat with a glass of water and my phone in my hand. Messages kept coming in, group chats, distant relatives, people asking for both sides. I didn't answer. The city kept moving. Cars passed. Someone's dog barked once, then stopped. I opened my calendar and entered the new custody schedule Evan had sent me. Pickup days, drop-off times, school events, doctor appointments, everything in place. Then I set my phone down on the table and stayed there for a while, quiet, listening to nothing in particular, thinking about how strange it was to feel peace without needing anyone's permission to have it.